Hello Golden Weebs, Shadow Golden Weeb here, and today we'll be looking at a subreddit that's a lot more different than what you're used to. Today we're looking at r/Let'sNotMeet. This story is called Some Woman Stood in My Flat, right next to the shower curtain. This happened a few years ago, in my old one-person flat. I had a strange feeling that something wasn't right for a few days, like I was sure the food in the fridge was less than I put back the last time. I found pillows from my couch on the floor, stuff like that. I lived alone back then, so there wasn't anyone else with access to my flat. Or so. That's what I thought. Well, one night, I woke up around 1 in the morning, sweating, and even though I didn't remember, I was sure I woke up from a nightmare. Since I was drenched in sweat, I decided to take a shower, so I put my phone up in the bathroom for music, turned on the water, and enjoyed my shower. A few minutes in, I heard the door move. I never close it, but it still never moves. I took a look at the shower curtain and saw a shadow against it, and a look at my phone confirmed someone was there, since I could clearly see a reflection in my screen that showed someone standing next to the shower curtain. It took me a lot not to scream, and to keep acting like I didn't notice anything. While silently taking the shower head off the holding and turning the water all the way hot, I'm still kind of impressed with that quick thinking. Our water got really hot when you cranked it all the way to hot, and a few seconds later, steam was rising, and the water hurt my feet flowing to the drain. I turned around, ripped the shower curtain open, and held the shower head right at the person behind. It was a woman. She screamed in pain. I whacked her in the face with the shower head and jumped out of the shower and ran to the door, taking the key out of the lock and locking it closed behind me. A little later she started to bang on the door, but the door didn't give. Thank God for German equality work. I called the cops and went to the kitchen to get my big kitchen knife, just for safety. I felt like my throat was closing up when I saw it missing, and realized there's only one place where it could possibly be right now. The police came and arrested the woman, who turned out to have been the former person living in that flat, and was evicted after not paying rent. She seemed to have made a copy of the key, and came into the flat when I was at work, and sometimes at night. It's possible that what woke me up in the first place was her. And honestly, I don't even want to think about it. Ever since then, I always insist the locks are changed when I move into a new place. This story is called Help the Stranded Motorist with a Baby in Broad Daylight. She kept insisting on having me take her to my home. This happened last summer, but I was just reminded of it. I was headed home from visiting a client, and there was major construction on the main highway. Up ahead, I could see a van pulled off at the side of the road and walking toward me. I saw a woman about my age carrying a small child, less than a year old. It was hot, probably mid-90s. Being a woman, having a child of my own, and having broken down in a bad spot before myself, I decided to turn around and talk to her. So I took the next exit and looped back. I pulled over and asked her if I can give her a ride. She seemed very thankful, and I gladly put her child in my car seat. I also had some bottled water and snacks. She was so grateful that it didn't set off any alarm bells for me yet. She said she was from a city about an hour away and was visiting family while her husband was at work. She told me that she had waited 45 minutes for help from her boyfriend, who worked at a casino in town and was trying to finish work but couldn't get a ride. Then she started walking, and I showed up. She told me they only had one car. I thought it was a little odd, since she said they lived in a town an hour away, but again, I just felt bad, that maybe they had fallen on hard times, and he couldn't find a job closer. I was getting a little wary by this point, because I couldn't imagine that she would actually drive him to work, and pick him up after midnight with an infant, and drive all the way back home, but again, thought they were just struggling. I offered to take her to a gas station. As she stated, she thinks she ran out of gas. She brought a gas can and filled it up. I offered to pay, but she refused. Okay, I thought. If she was trying to scam me, she would have taken money, right? So I take her back to her car. When I get there, a cop is on the scene and asks me what's going on. I let her explain. I gave her my number because I'm still concerned about the baby and the heat, etc., and tell her that I would give her another ride from the scene if needed. She declined. About an hour later, she texts me. She says the gas didn't work, and the car needed to be jumped, but due to the liability, the officer could not do it with his car. I got back in my car and headed back, but on the way, she starts sending multiple texts. She says her husband, but was saying boyfriend, was going to pick her up in his car, but she said before they only had one car, but she needed a place to stay until he got off at 3 in the morning. Initially, she had said around midnight. I said, okay, I'm willing to drop you off at Target. I'm getting wary at this point. But again, the baby. She says no. I need a place for my daughter. By this time, I was feeling really weird and had pulled over. So I finally text back and say, call the cop back. Tell him to take you to X motel, and I will go there and pay for a room. I figure at the worst it'll be about $80. She refuses. She says,
What about your house?
I say no. I am not comfortable with that. She keeps insisting, saying she would just stay there until her husband and his friend comes and gets them at 3 in the morning. I say no again. She keeps insisting, getting more and more forceful, asking why I wouldn't let her, playing the baby card, alarm bells going off like crazy. Finally, I just stop answering and call the officer who had given me his card. I don't know what he had figured out, but he said under absolutely no circumstances should you do any of these things for her. I now think she possibly intended to have her husband rob us, or worse. I just ended up with the absolute worst feeling when she changed her story and insisted on me taking her to my home. This may not be the creepiest story ever, but there is definitely something up with this stranded motorist. This story is called Creepy Guy Asked If I Wanted to See His Van, then proceeded to follow me. I was 12 at the time. Yes, I am still a youngling. I live in a quite large town. However, my house was relatively close to the center, and it was about a 5-minute walk. I had ordered a book to the local bookshop, and I was going to pick it up. Despite my age, my parents were fine with me going by myself, and quite often asked me to run errands for them. However, this time, it was just an in-and-out trip. My town was relatively quiet for its size, and is mainly full of elderly people. It was jeans and a long-sleeved shirt, and it was cropped slightly, and I had a handbag. I was wearing headphones, and no way looking for conversation. However, on my way back home, this scrappy-looking guy who looked like he was in his late teens, early 20s approached me. Now, keep in mind, my social skills are awful. I get freaked if someone offers me samples in town, so the fact that this dude was starting to make conversation with me triggered something in my brain to avoid the conversation at all costs. I pretended I didn't see him and walked past, but he continued to follow me and ask questions. I turned my music down slightly to hear what he was saying, but still pretended to ignore him. He ended up asking me if I wanted to see his van. I snapped and turned to him, asking him if he was fucking stupid, then continued to walk. He kept following, so I built up my confidence to ask a couple having coffee to get rid of this guy for me. When he saw I was talking to some people, pointing at him, he walked away. I thought that was the end of it, but took a slightly longer route home just in case. But, as luck would have it, walking down a long stretch of road, I saw him at the very end, wandering around a small green. I suppose he saw me too, and he turned and started advancing towards me. I picked up the pace and sprinted to the gas station, run by this lovely dude who me and my older sister had many run-ins with. When I got there, I told the guy everything that happened, and he gave me the phone to call my dad. There was only a short way between the station and my house, but I was terrified of going out. My dad picked up the phone and I started telling him what happened, and that's when something broke and I burst into tears, which slightly took me by surprise, as I was not an easy crier. A few moments later, my dad came, and the shopkeeper told him what happened. We went home and my dad called the police, who later found the guy wandering around said gas station. I hate to think of what happened if I did anything different, but creepy stalker dude, let's not meet again. The number 15, Burger King foot lettuce. The last thing you'd want in your Burger King burger is someone's foot fungus. As it turns out, that might be what you get. A 4chaner uploaded a photo anonymously to the site showcasing his feet in a plastic bin of lettuce, with the statement, "This is the lettuce you eat at Burger King." Admittedly, he had his shoes on, but that's even worse. The post went live at 11:38 p.m. on July 16th, and a mere 20 minutes later, the Burger King in question was alerted to the rogue employee. At least, I hope he's rogue. How did it happen? Well, the Burger King employee hadn't removed the EXIF data from the uploaded photo, which suggested the culprit was somewhere in Mayfield Heights, Ohio. This was at 11:47. 3 minutes later, at 11:50, the Burger King branch address was posted with wishes of happy unemployment. 5 minutes later, the news station was contacted by another 4chaner. And 3 minutes later, at 11:58, a link was posted at BK's Tell Us About Us online forum. The foot photo, otherwise known as Exhibit A, was attached. Cleveland Scene magazine contacted the BK in question the next day. When questioned, the breakfast shift manager said, "Oh, I know who that is. He's getting fired." Mystery solved by 4chan. Now we can go back to eating our food in peace. Hey, look at that, you made it to the outro! I hope you enjoyed the video. Making it all the way to the end really does mean a lot. Watch time does affect how well my videos do, so if you really did watch it all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, you guys. I recently made a Patreon, and I hope that you're able to maybe subscribe to that. I don't really ask for too much. I'm not asking for $50 for my lowest tier, just simple $2 a month even. Just that goes a long way, you guys. Please, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Maybe hit that notification bell. But aside from that, I hope you have a golden day.